PJNET.tv. On Tuesday, it's 9 p.m. on the East Coast. It's the first Tuesday of the month. Time for Ben Cooper, who's standing by. Our bumper is rolling. We are recording. We are streaming on all platforms, and our background is ready, and the chat room is waiting. So, we'll switch to Studio 6 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, good evening and welcome to PJNET.tv. I'm Coach Prasick, and it is my honor to kind of host this event that we do at this time each night. Tonight is the first Tuesday of the month, and that night is reserved for this guy, right? That's not him, but you see the honeycomb, and many of you already know Ben and know that he is a keeper of the bees, and he shamelessly confesses and even proudly boasts that he doesn't make honey. The bees make the honey. He steals it. And he is shameless. And he is here with us tonight. Ben, welcome back to PJNET.tv. Always good to have you on the stage tonight. You know, we see you in the chat room all the time, it seems like. But here you are with us, and God has given you a message about the bones or something.
Well, yeah, and fitting for this time in the spiritual life of the Passion Week. But before I want to get that, I want to make sure that a couple shout outs. I want to thank you. I want to thank Barb for the work that you did. This is the first time I've been on because last month I was just getting ready to leave, pack up, and go to North Carolina. And thank you guys for all the work that you did there. And I'm sure that work has not been completed yet because a lot more has to go on. You said that Renee was in the chat room.
Renee, she is in the chat room, so whatever you're about to say, she will hear.
She has joined in the beekeeping journey as of Saturday, so we're starting to grow numbers even in PJNet. So I hope everybody will get a beehive. But Renee just got 2 hives on Saturday, so she's enjoying it, and I want to encourage her. I also want to say that because of the COVID-19 virus, both of my cancer doctors told me I'm extremely at risk. And I don't consider that a problem because I'm staying at home. I'm working with my bees. I'm doing some writing, and I've been able to sit in to some church services that I normally wouldn't ever have a chance to. Sit in with Andy Clapp all the way down there in Liberty. I've sat in with Britt Mooney and his service, and even a discipleship class that he's doing. That started last week. And probably the most exciting one, at least the one I've learned so much more, is Stephanie Pavlantos has been doing a study. It was 2 weeks, and it was extremely well prepared. I learned a lot, bought the book that Lost in Translation, the Hebrew book that she was teaching out of, and I'm enjoying reading it right now. So even though we're kind of isolated, we're sheltering in place, that doesn't stop us from being a community. And I want to give a shout out to those that are doing their part, doing what you wanted them to do all along.
They wouldn't listen to me. Yeah, they wouldn't.
It took a disease. It took a virus.
Well, I'll take it. I rejoice. I really do. And the jury is out when this blows over. I want it to sustain, and I want it to increase. I want it to grow because there's plenty of room in the digital space for the gospel message.
Amen to that. I totally agree.
Amen. And I really rejoice, and I am constantly challenging those and dragging them by their hair, kicking and screaming. It seems to take our place, but we're called to make disciples, Ben. Right. And as technology advances, that means using the tools that that are at our disposal. So I love it. I'm having the time of my life. And hey, Ben, I appreciate you because you have taken a very forward position here in the PJNET.tv family. Oh, by the way, are you folks, if you're watching this on Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook, I am so glad you're here. The people are in the chat room at PJNET.tv. So if you want to take a hop over there, there's a whole heap and helping of hospitality over there if you want to go check it out at PJNET.tv. That just paused for a commercial, Ben. I had to
There you go.
I'll add 30 seconds to your time, sir.
I wanted to talk about one of the animals that I talk about and wrote about in my book, and actually lived raising and working with is sheep. There are quite a few passages in the Bible that refer to sheep, actually 796 that I could find, that either deal with rams, ewes, lambs, or flocks. And so if you look up those words, I've come up with 796 verses. Somebody might be able to find some more, but we're very familiar with the Exodus 12 version of the Passover. And as we go into this Passion Week and that Lord's Supper that took place thousands of years ago, the lamb was crucial because it was part of Jewish history. That Passover coming out of Egypt and the plagues and that painting of the blood on the door lintels, very significant. And I think we as non-Hebrew people kind of glance over that and forget about some of the things. But I want to even take it back to what we're all thinking about Easter. It's going to be a strange Easter, not having a sunrise service or
the sun's going to come up.
Unless it's going to come up. We might not see it if it's raining, but it's going to be different. But I've raised my own sheep. I've dabbled with Cheviots and Dorsets. I've shown some sheep. I've worked on, in my internship while I was at Penn State, I was in Arkansas for 4 months during lambing season on Heifer International Ranch, which was a fabulous learning experience for me. I got to meet so many people from so many different countries and still working with animals. I've taken classes, vet sci class at Penn State, animal production, sheep production classes. But one of the really interesting things that I learned was in a meats class. I actually took animal evaluation classes, livestock slaughtering, and then meat processing, the whole gamut from raising and breeding and growing out animals to butchering them, and then actually learning how to make the cuts of meat, which was actually sold on campus to staff and anybody that wanted it. But I have a question for you, and you're going to be able to pop up a little graphic that do you know the difference between lamb and mutton?
I will counter that with another question. Do you know the difference between champagne and sparkling wine?
Probably the cost. I don't know.
No, where it's made. Do you know the difference between bourbon and whiskey? Where it's made.
No.
Whiskey's a product of Tennessee.
Okay.
I would have to regress to even answer that question. I didn't know there was a difference. I thought mutton was just sort of a vernacular street slang for lamb.
No, it's different. And I think when I was a student at Penn State, they served us mutton rather than lamb because lamb is much more expensive. Mutton is the older ewe or an older animal, and lambs traditionally are less than a year old. And the only way you can age that is looking at, now I got to get this this pointing down. I'm going to point to, this is a shank bone of the leg, and your graphic is there. But as you look at that, you see two different examples. And when you're in the marketplace, thinking of the old Jewish marketplace, you would see a leg of lamb and buy it. The meat was hanging out there for everybody to see and to inspect. And you could tell from afar off, the leg that is separated is actually, whenever a sheep is young, it's not joined together. It looks like my knuckles that are fitting together, and that picture shows them pulled apart. Going back to the Christmas story, how many times have you ever seen a nativity scene with a shepherd and he has a lamb draped over the neck of his and over his back?
Yeah, what's up with that?
That's an example of this term called a break joint. The lamb is young enough that the calcium throughout its body hasn't calcified and joined the bones together.
Wow.
So these two bones are actually separated for a young lamb. Once they get to be about a year old, they're stuck together, and the only way you're going to be able to break that apart is to actually physically break it or cut it with a saw.
Right.
And so you can see, I'm not giving you a fist bump, but you could see this part of my wrist rather than a jagged edge piece of leg of lamb. So to tell the difference, even to this day, a lamb versus mutton is whether that break joint is present, meaning it's a nice smooth joint. In our livestock slaughtering class, we actually had to cut with a knife through that skin, the tendons. But I'm sure as a coach, you know what a torn ACL is like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've probably had players, hopefully you've never had that. But it takes a while to heal from that. So a shepherd would actually take that sheep that would be that one that would wander off, the 99 in the fold and one that wanders away, and he would actually, at a young age, break its leg. But it's not really broken because the bone's not broken. They're not fused together yet.
Right.
He would actually tear the ACL or tear the tendons. And so it would take several weeks, 6 weeks or more, before that lamb could walk again. So the shepherd physically had to carry that lamb from pasture to pasture to water and then back into the sheepfold, because they brought him into the folds in the rock corrals basically every evening for protection. And so while that happened, that wayward sheep got to really truly love the shepherd and rely on the shepherd to the point where after it got healed and was able to walk, it walked right close to the shepherd, right in step with the shepherd all the time. And as a Penn State student going to a land-grant university, I wanted a degree in agriculture, and I got that degree. But my faith was solidified, and my belief, my biblical belief, was solidified in things like this that I saw in a secular college. I didn't have to go to a Christian college. Very few Christian colleges have an ag science degree. So, but my faith was solidified because I saw these things, glimpses of things going through regular classes that just made the science and the Bible lessons just come alive to me. And so if you think of that shepherd standing there at the nativity with that lamb that was broken, and Coach and I discussed this for those in the chat room and listening, that passage in Luke, where you look in Luke 15, where there was 99 sheep left in the fold while the shepherd finds that one that's wandering. I think the truth behind that whole lesson is every one of those 99 that were left at one point needed rescued. And we only think of that one, but if we think of our own self, we were that one, and the whole 99 needed rescued. Any thoughts while I give you a break there, Coach?
Ben, what you just described could be the winning answer on a game show. So if anybody has heard this story and has gained knowledge that will enhance you in a monetary way, that man right there is due a commission. Okay. Well, that's very interesting. As you were describing it, I was thinking maybe perhaps this has to do with birthing, because the human brain is similarly fashioned at childbirth. The brain is, there's a soft spot right there
Yep.
because the skeleton has not fused together, and this, that way you got kind of a pointy head. It's easier to get out, and and I'm wondering if that might be part of the functionality of it. Now, did I understand you to say the difference between lamb and mutton is really age? Is the lamb the younger?
It's younger meat, tender meat,
More,
nicer, more
more
palatable,
desirable. Hmm.
more
Okay.
desirable. And the only way that you can age that is through that break joint.
And
It's
that is
not,
the litmus test.
that is the litmus test. Still to this day, that determines if you have to break it and it's a jagged edge and you go to the market, they would say, no, I'm not paying $4 a pound for leg of mutton.
Mutton.
I want leg of lamb. So you had to know what you were wanting to buy. Sheep have shown up in so many different times. Like I said, 796 verses attribute to it. In John also we hear this discourse between John. In John's gospel, we hear between Christ and Peter, and he tells him 3 different times: "Feed my sheep, feed my lambs, and nourish my." And right before Jesus leaves his earthly ministry, one of the other times in Isaiah that I think is really probably most popular: "We all, like sheep, have gone astray," and that goes back to that 99. At one time, we were that one out of 99 that have gone astray. But one of the things, I guess, to kind of tie it all together, as you walked in a marketplace, you would see whether that break joint was clear or it was a jagged edge or sawed, and you would know for sure. And John chapter 1, verse 29 tells us that John the Baptist sees Jesus coming from afar off, and he tells the others around him, "Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world." So much symbolism in animals and in that Jewish history, in the Israel's history, and one of the names or terms for Christ was the Good Shepherd,
Hmm.
and we can pick so much up off of looking in and digging in a lot deeper than what we normally do when we just kind of cursory read through scripture. So that's what I wanted to share.
I think you've illustrated, in your secular studies, the harmony between, God's creation declares his majesty. That's the way I say it. And Ben, you have actually written a book to that effect of All Nature Sings. We've got a couple of minutes left. Would you like to tell us about the inspiration and the substance of your book, All Nature Sings?
It started in 1996. I wanted to write it as a homeschool curriculum for my own kids. Just some things. If it's a combination of my life and experience with a lot of the animals that I write about. Not all of them I have experience. I told you last month that I do actually have one experience with elephants. We might get there sometime. I might not be able to share what I wrote because on elephants, because it's being reviewed and might be accepted in a manuscript. So I have to wait off on that. But God has given us so much, and I just felt when I would want to write, it always would go back to animals. And by the way, bees are animals as well. We talked about that, I think, one of the first times I was on. But I just love being around them. I learned so much. God's creativity is so wonderful. I can sit there. I kind of joked with Renee online. I said, "Did you go out and check your bees yet?" And she's been out several times and she's checking on her bees, watching them. I can sit and watch them bring in pollen, different colors, and see what's going on. Just amazed at what is done. But I wanted to write this book for my kids, and it came out last January, and my youngest was 17 years old. She was almost ready for her last year of homeschool. So life got in the way, and it took a while for me to get everything down on a page. So that's what happens. But I'm thankful that it's out there.
Ben, it's wonderful work. And oh, I forgot to mention earlier. Do you know the difference between crazy and eccentric?
Well, I've got a graphic that has a bubble that says crazy and then a bubble that says beekeeper, no, farmers and beekeepers, and where the two converge, that's where beekeepers are. Crazy
Okay.
people and farmers. So
Folks, the difference between crazy and eccentric is annual income. It's the same thing, okay? If you make enough money, you're eccentric anyway. Ben, you have thrilled us, and the chat room has been putting out comments. I don't have time to go through them, but I hope that, I don't have to hope. I'm pretty sure as soon as you vanish off that screen, you'll be running over there. Folks, if you have any questions to ask Ben directly, I'm pretty sure he'll be in the chat room in just a few minutes. But so Ben, thank you. You know, you're also, folks, Ben is a team player on the PJNet team. He is an example, one of many, by the way, of working together to help each other. I always use the illustration, Ben, a rising tide floats all boats. Ben does everything he can to promote the PJNET.tv brand and the mission and the vision that we have here. Ben, I thank you for being a team player. Thank you for sharing your thoughts tonight. And we will see you again on that stage the first Tuesday of May. Can't wait.
all right.
All right,
Thanks,
Ben.
Coach.
All right, thank you, folks. All right, in just a few minutes, don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. Do not touch that dial. At the bottom of the hour, Dell Didway will be our live guest. He'll be right on that screen. He has got an incredible story to tell that will, well, it's a true story, that will inspire you. And between now and then, I want you to think of two things. I want to ask you two questions, and then I'm going to challenge you. Question number one: what is the boldest thing you have ever done for Jesus Christ? And then question number two is, how long ago was that? The challenge for myself, and I hope for each one of us, is that we never are satisfied with either answer.